Hey everyone, it's Mark. This is my recap for Pokémon Journeys episode 74, Darkrai, A Midsummer's Night Dream. This was the 1159th episode of the Pokémon anime, and probably one of the first episodes that's been named after a Shakespeare play. That's besides the point though. This episode was amazing and I've just got so much to say about it, so let's dive straight into the highlights. There's no time for the usual opening restating Ash and Goh's dreams. This episode goes straight to New Moon Island where Cresselia is getting attacked by Team Rocket. More specifically, it's Giovanni's secretary, Matori, leading her elite unit known as the Matori Matrix. This is the same group of grunts from episode 24 of Journeys, but they are a whole lot more effective this time around. Cresselia manages to escape, although it's forced to hide because of the injuries it suffered. Meanwhile, Darkrai is just minding its own business until, well, we don't really know what happens, but Darkrai starts to rush off towards the mainland. I'm assuming it could sense that Cresselia was in peril, but more on that later. Over the Cerise lab, Professor Cerise is reporting on how people in Sinnoh are suffering from nightmares, and it's speculated that Darkrai could be behind them. Ash agrees and thinks that Darkrai could be the cause, to which Goh asked if he's met Darkrai before, and Ash says that he has. I was expecting Ash to remember his previous encounters with Darkrai, and this nice bit of continuity was a great detail. Unsurprisingly, this discussion ends with Ash and Goh deciding to head to Sinnoh in order to investigate. At the same time, Chloe is just getting back from school, and it turns out she's actually on summer break right now. She can't wait to go on the family vacation that the Cerises have planned, but Professor Cerise freaks out when he remembers that he's supposed to be going on that vacation. Cut to the next day, and the vacation is cancelled. Chloe's parents are both busy, so she eventually decides to go to Sinnoh by herself. Chloe was really the main character of this episode, so I will be talking a lot about her. She really wants to go on a trip, but is angry with her parents for bailing on the one they had planned. Basically, she's determined to go and have a good time, but she's a little headstrong, as shown by her overpacked suitcase. That kinda reminds me of someone else. Anyways, her mom gives her a bag to use instead, and then tells her that going on her own journey is a good chance for her to go out and be free. You know, like, have some fun. Remember that part. Also, Professor Cerise was hilarious in this scene. He was so worried about his daughter traveling by herself and couldn't hide it at all. I guess now we know that Professor Cerise is an overprotective parent. Chloe and Eevee get off their flight in what I think was Jubilife City, and they eventually see Dawn's mom getting interviewed about an upcoming Pokemon contest in Eterna City. Eevee seems interested, so they decide to head to Eterna. Okay, geography lesson time. Eterna City is in the northwest part of Sinnoh, and what islands are just off the northwest coast of Sinnoh? Well, Iron Island, yes, but that's not important right now. Full Moon and New Moon Island are in that direction, so Chloe and Eevee are somewhere around Eterna City, and it's possible that Darkrai and Cresselia are around there too. For now, Chloe and Eevee are on their own, and after getting chased by a flock of Starly and then getting rained on, Chloe tries to rationalize this unfortunate turn of events by saying that you have to find the fun in everything. This was when I started to realize that Chloe is doing that thing where you try really hard to enjoy everything on a vacation because you feel like you are supposed to be having fun. At least that was my amateur psychologist attempt at reading the situation. We see Ash and Goh for the first time since the start of the episode, and they're in one of those cities where everyone is having nightmares. Officer Jenny tells them where the nightmares have been occurring, and Ash and Goh decide that they're going to track where they think the nightmares might happen next. Meanwhile, back in Vermilion City, Matori tells Team Rocket to go look for the Cresselia that escaped her. Her reasoning for this was basically to pass the blame onto Team Rocket if they end up being unable to capture Cresselia, so Matori is going to let them handle that side of the mission while her unit is going to pursue Darkrai. So, just to confirm, the Matori Matrix's mission is to capture both Darkrai and Cresselia. Let's see how that goes for them. If I was Giovanni, I would not be happy that Matori sent arguably the least competent grunts in Team Rocket history to go after Cresselia, but maybe Jesse, James, and Meowth will come through in the clutch. Meanwhile, our lonely travelers find a pretty lake, and after admiring that, they decide to camp out for the night. I already showed you what happened at the beginning of this video. Dawn and Piplup make their returns to the anime in a very graceful way. Dawn and Chloe introduce each other, and they seem to hit it off pretty quickly. They're both going to Eterna City, and Dawn tries to convince Chloe to join the contest there. Unsurprisingly, Chloe declines, as she's not one to jump into something new, especially when it comes to Pokemon. Dawn talks about how she's competed in contests all over the place, including Hoenn, Unova, and Johto. That's our update on Dawn's coordinator journey. She also talks about how she used to travel around Sinnoh with 2 other people. Gee, I wonder who they could be. Okay, enough about that. Let's get to what was easily my favorite scene of the entire episode. I will say up front that Ash and Goh are both dreaming this, so what I'm about to talk about was not an actual thing that happened, but instead is actually the 2 of them having a nightmare. However, in the moment that isn't said, we just see Ash and Goh back at the Cerise lab, where Krista and Ren are acting kinda strange. So strange, in fact, that they performed the entire Team Rocket motto, or should I say, the Team Sakuragi motto. Reminder that Professor Cerise's name in the original Japanese version of the show is Professor Sakuragi. Speaking of which, Sakuragi himself is revealed to be the leader of this evil organization, and Ash and Goh have even been magically put into their own Team Sakuragi uniforms. That's about when they wake up, and if things weren't crazy enough already in this scene, they immediately run outside and see Darkrai staring at them. Wait, what just happened? This was a wild scene. I could not stop laughing at the Team Sakuragi impersonation that was killing me when all of a sudden the boys are just staring Darkrai in the face. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So there is a little bit of ambiguity here of what actually happened, but I'd imagine this ties back into what they said earlier about trying to find where the nightmares would be happening next. They must have figured out that location, gone and spent the night there, and their calculations must have been correct. The nightmares would be held there, and Darkrai was the cause of them. I am a little confused as to why they were so easily able to run outside and just see Darkrai in plain sight. I would have assumed it would be a little more hidden. Maybe this was intentional though. I mean, Ash could recognize Darkrai, so do you think it's possible that Darkrai could have sensed or recognized Ash and maybe wanted to be seen? The reason I bring this up is really similar to what happened with Goh's Absol a few episodes back. Absol was concerned about Mount Chimney erupting, and it led the boys so that they could help save the day. Back at the beginning of this episode, we saw Darkrai rush towards the mainland after Cresselia was wounded. My theory here is that Darkrai wants to get help for Cresselia, and it's causing the nightmares so that it can get people's attention. Ash and Goh were smart enough to recognize what Darkrai was up to, and now Darkrai wants them to go help Cresselia. That's my theory. I could be totally wrong here, and I could probably explain myself more in depth, but quite honestly, there's so much going on in this episode that I just don't have the time to dive deeper into this. Maybe we can continue this discussion down in the comments, or over on Twitter or Discord. Alright, back to the episode. It's the next morning, and our 2 sleeping beauty queens have woken up to their usual bad hair days, but Piplup's Bubble Beam helps them fix their hair. Eevee thinks this was cool and tries to use Copycat and learn Bubble Beam herself. The next scene is all about Dawn getting sidetracked by every little thing on their way to Eterna City, and minor detail here, but was Piplup way smaller in this episode than what he used to be? Maybe I'm just seeing things, but Piplup was tiny in this episode. Anyways, Chloe gets all worked up because she wants to hurry up and get to Eterna City, but Dawn, well, she just tells her no need to worry over and over and over again as she keeps getting distracted. This leads to a bit of an argument between the girls. Dawn tells her to loosen up and have some fun, while Chloe is adamant that she is having fun. This tied back into what's already happened in this episode, specifically Chloe's mom telling her to be free and have fun, as well as the scene when Chloe is convincing herself that she must be having fun no matter what. Ash and Goh, on the other hand, are in sync and figure out that Darkrai must be in or around this forest, though they decide to head there. I don't think it takes a genius to realize that this is the same forest that Dawn and Chloe have been walking through. Cut to Team Rocket, and it looks like Jessie, James, and Meowth have found themselves looking in the same area for Cresselia. We don't see these guys again for the rest of the episode, but this scene did clarify what I said earlier about this episode's setting being in the northwest part of Sinnoh, in between Eterna City and New Moon Island. Dawn and Chloe are still fighting when a Rhydon pops out of nowhere, looking very irritated and very sleep deprived. This leads to a battle, and Chloe tells Eevee to use Tackle and lands a hit. Wait a minute, did Chloe just have Eevee use Tackle? Bingo! Of all the Elite Trainer Mark bingo tiles to get checked off in this episode, I did not expect it to be Chloe's Eevee using a move that is a copycat, but well, here we are. Dawn lands a hit with Piplup's Bubble Beam, and yeah, here we go. This is more what I was expecting. Eevee uses Copycat to learn Bubble Beam and nails Rhydon so hard that it falls asleep. What is this, Ash's Rowlet? Anyways, this brings the 2 girls closer together, and it looks like they're finished with that pointless argument they were just having. However, just down the path, they find Cresselia? Yeah, that Cresselia from the start of the episode has fled here to rest, and Dawn and Chloe don't really know how to react. Meanwhile, Ash and Goh are approaching the forest in their hunt for Darkrai, and Ash brings up how it would be nice if Cresselia were here, since it can drive off Darkrai. Goh, using his extensive Pokemon knowledge, points out how Cresselia can create lunar wings that have the power to dispel Darkrai's nightmares. The episode comes to an end with our 4 heroes fully involved in this mess with Darkrai and Cresselia, and I guess you can throw Team Rocket into that as well. Wow, what an episode. I'm giving this episode a 9 out of 10 rating. So close to that elusive 10 out of 10, but that bingo tile will have to wait for another day. The only one that got checked off in this episode was Chloe's Eevee using a move other than Copycat. If you're new around here and have no clue what I'm talking about, a few weeks ago I made a Pokémon Journeys bingo card, Elite Trainer Mark Edition. Basically, as we watch each episode, we're trying to see if we can get bingo by having certain events take place over the course of the anime. So far, this is the 5th tile that we've been able to cross off, and we'll have to wait and see what event happens next. Anyways, back to this episode, and where do I start? I had so much fun watching this episode. That was easily the longest recap I've done in a while. Well, usually I only need about 40 screenshots to cover everything that happened in an episode. This time I needed to use about 70 screenshots just to go over everything that happened. Dawn's return episode was jam-packed, but I thought this episode was incredibly well paced despite that. If you remember back to my criticism of the previous episode, I thought we had way too many abrupt scene changes between Ash, Goh, and Ice-Q. This episode, on the other hand, flowed really well from scene to scene. I think the dream sequence was the best example of that. We hadn't seen Ash and Goh for a while, but once we figured out that they were having a nightmare, we could connect the dots and figure out that they must have succeeded in their plan of following the trail where they thought the nightmares would happen next. That was left totally unsaid, and usually the anime tries to spell out everything for us and make things as obvious as possible, but this time around they actually trusted the audience to be paying enough attention to keep up with what was happening. Well done. The other thing I really wanted to praise in this episode was the way Chloe was written. She was rightfully angry at her parents for canceling their vacation, and then she started acting, well, kind of like Dawn did at the start of her Pokemon journey. I pointed out the obvious references like Chloe's overpacked suitcase and her being worried about her hair, two things that happened to Dawn on the outset of her journey. The other parallel that we saw between the two in this episode was Dawn's carefree attitude, which contrasted significantly with Chloe's determination to have fun and make her vacation a good one. Think back to the start of Dawn's journey in Diamond and Pearl. Her catchphrase has always been "no need to worry," but at the start of DP, she did not embody that attitude much at all. She was so dead set on winning contests that she lost sight of having fun, and that even got her into a little bit of a depression. Ash and Brock got her out of that funk, and over the course of her adventure with them, she learned to let loose and be free. Wait, isn't that exactly what Chloe's mom told her to do in this episode? Oh yeah, it's all tying together. I did think Dawn constantly getting distracted and her repetition of Daijobu, Daijobu, Daijobu was a bit much, but I think the only reason they did that was to really exaggerate what was really going on here. Chloe, in her determination to make her journey a success, was acting like Dawn did back in the day. Just like Dawn had put so much pressure on herself to win contest, Chloe put so much pressure on herself to have fun and enjoy the vacation she was on. Dawn, having matured past that point in her life, now knows to take things less seriously and just have fun, a valuable lesson that I think Chloe will start to learn herself. Wow, I really didn't think there was going to be so much well-written development in this episode. Dawn seemed like a kind of random character to bring back to help with Chloe's character development, but I think this was a near perfect use of her character to help Chloe grow and learn. This wasn't just a nostalgia trip, it was a meaningful way to use an existing character in order to help a new character develop. Alright, enough about them. I feel like I'm writing an English essay at this point. Let's talk about Ash and Goh for a second. They weren't the focus of this episode, which I was very much in favor of, and like I pointed out earlier, it was pretty cool that Ash just so casually brought up Darkrai and Cresselia, because we don't always get to see him use his past experiences like that, especially in regards to stuff that happened to him in previous series of the anime. Overall, this episode was incredible, and the best part about it is that it was all just setting up what's going to happen next week. There wasn't a ton of action or battling in this episode, but that's all set to change in the next episode, which is going to include the big showdown between Team Rocket and, well, everyone else. As expected, it seems like Ash and Dawn's reunion is going to be pretty much skipped over. We really don't have time for them to stop and reminisce, but that's totally fine with me, because it looks like things are going to get pretty crazy with Cresselia, the Matory Matrix, and the regular Team Rocket trio as well. Like I theorized earlier in this video, I think Darkrai's involvement is actually going to be positive. I think it's going to help our heroes fight off Team Rocket, much to everyone's shock. Cresselia will eventually regain its strength and the day will be saved. My quick predictions are that no one is going to catch either Darkrai or Cresselia, and that the episode will end with everyone finally getting to watch Dawn compete in the Eterna City Pokemon contest. Although I think that will be like the very end of the episode. I don't actually expect more than, say, 90 seconds to be spent on the contest itself. Alright, this has been my longest recap in a while, but there was just so much to talk about in this episode. I was so excited when I heard Dawn was returning, and this episode did not disappoint one bit. And the next episode has the potential to be even better. Thanks for watching this whole video. Be sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. I plan on putting out a somewhat ridiculous video sometime next week talking about similarities between the Olympics and the Pokemon anime, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that one. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.